Hello, my name is Corey and I would like to welcome you to the Clater House. Today we are continuing on the built-in project that I created for an interior design client of mine. In this video, we are putting up our floating shelf brackets. We're filling in the top structure above the cabinets so they can connect to the ceiling and finally start to look like a built-in piece. And we are finally going to paint. In our last video, I put up the shiplap boards and I talked about why they were my biggest regret of this entire project. I also installed the desktop and put on our face frames, and we finally start to see the cabinets look like cabinets and start to see the vision come together. So if you missed that video, you can go ahead and check it out here, because like I said, in this video, we are putting up the floating shelves, filling in the top structure and painting. So we're finally gonna start to see how some of the wood tones and the colors in the room start to pull together. Just like in the earlier videos of this series, I want to remind everyone that I am not a contractor or a builder or anything like that. I am an interior designer, and this is my first DIY project. So please, 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 before attempting any project of your own, research extensively, take all safety precautions, and don't use any power tools that you are not comfortable with. This series is meant for inspiration and education, not as a tutorial, so please be safe if you attempt any projects on your own. With that being said, let's jump right into it. We're gonna get started with the floating shelves. Now, it took me a little bit of time to decide how to space these shelves. We're gonna have 3 of them. So down here, because this will be used as a desk, there's a monitor that is 17 inches tall. And then we might do like a lamp on one side and a vase on the other. As far as styling choices, we don't know exactly what we're gonna do quite yet, but I know at least the monitor is 17 inches. Typically above a desk, if you have a shelf above a desk, typically you want 30 inches is usually the standard for that. And then the distance between shelves is usually between 12 to 16 inches. You can go down to as little as 8 in like different situations, but because of the proportions of this is so like the ceilings are 9 feet tall. These cabinets on either side are behemoths. The shiplap is vertical line, so that's gonna draw your eye up. So like there's a lot of height here. And so if our shelves are too close together, it might look a little strange. So I've been playing with like the proportions of these shelves. Originally, I was going to do 16 inches between each. I was gonna go the full 16. And then that would, from the desktop up, would be around 18 to 20, which is 10 inches less than our standard 30 inches. So I played with the 16 inches with the like 18 to 20 down here. And proportionally, like there wasn't enough of a difference between the shelves, like the width between the shelves and the width down here, to make it not feel like the desk was a shelf. So I wanted to raise this up more. So I played with going at the 30 inches around that, which was gonna give us a little bit more than a foot between each shelf, but I did want more than a foot. That felt too smushed. That wouldn't be proportional because there would be such a huge space here and then all these smushed little spaces up there. I wanted something to feel substantial and give us enough space that the shelves themselves match the behemoth-ness of the rest of this wall. So I started playing with 14 inches, which gives a little over 2 feet. 25.5 would be right here. A lot of substantial lamps, like if you do a good substantial lamp, are 2 feet, they're 24 inches. So with this being 20, and that's one of the styling choices I've thought about for either side beside the monitor. And so if we did end up going with a 24-inch lamp, that only gives us 1.5 inches above the lamp in the bottom of the shelf, which is a little tight. It's gonna make the lamp feel too big. It's gonna feel cramped in that space that it goes. So I was like, what if instead of 14 inches, I did 13? And the space from the desk to the bottom of the first shelf would be 28 3/4 inches. It makes this space where the monitor is going to be a nice focal moment and makes the shelves, they have their moment. It still feels proportional, the shelves still feel substantial, but this space down here still feels like a desk space. It gives proportionally the right look. So I'm going with that option. I assembled the support for my shelves the same way I did the desk support in my last video. It was all constructed using 1x2s. I cut them down to size, I laid them out to make sure they were all the right measurements, and then I started assembling them. I drilled 2 pocket holes in each side of the shorter pieces that ran front to back across the shelves. And then when I went to assemble it, I spaced those pieces about 12 1/4 inches apart. I applied wood glue and used the same 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws that I've been using throughout the project.
In the twilight's gentle flow, in the dance of fading light we grow.
To get my shelves up on the wall, I measured the height that I wanted it out and then gave myself an extra 1/2 inch to account for the thickness of the plywood. I marked all of my studs, drilled pilot holes, and used 3-inch screws to screw through the 1x2, through the shiplap, through the drywall, and into the studs. There's 4 studs along the back, and then in 2 places on each of the sides, I used 1.5 inch cabinet screws.
I'm lost, I'm lost. Yeah, we can walk on.
Okay, so the first shelf brace is up. I decided to go with 13.5 inches between each shelf, so I think this was like 27 1/4 off. It's at 27 3/4, but then once the plywood goes on, it'll be 27 1/4 from the desktop.
Caught behind Venetian blinds, out of reach for the city lights. This ain't where I belong. Hey, look at me, man, what I've become. I've been running east, looking for some.
It was at this point that I realized something did not look quite right. So I double checked my measurements, and I'm gonna let you enjoy this little moment that I had. 2.5 times 3 equals 7.5. Great. So 73.25 minus 7.5 equals 67.75. Wonderful. Minus 13.5 minus 13.5 equals . So it should at least be 13. Why is it not? Why don't I have 13? Is that not, like, hello? Plus 1/2 inch should be 2. Plus 1/2 inch equals 2.5. Like, I'm bad at math, but I'm not that bad at math. Like, I know how to use a calculator. What? Christ. Well, now what am I gonna do? All right, so I just had a little mentee bee, and the reason for that is I measured my height and then I'm taking away all my measurements, and I get the right thing, but then I put this up here and the spacing for the top shelf is not correct. It's not gonna be what it was supposed to be. I don't know why. I don't know why the math was not mathing, but it wasn't. So I can either take all of these shelves, well, not all of them, but like move this one that I just screwed in and move it, or when I go to do the top part, I can just raise the top a little bit higher because I don't have a ton of space anyway. So I can just raise that up an extra 1.5 to 2 inches, which I don't want to do either. Well, and these screws that I just screwed into here are stripped. So that's going to be not a good time trying to get those out. So I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. In theory, I think it would be easier to take this shelf down and just like move it. But I don't want to do that. Like I already put it up and there's holes and I don't want to have to patch them. I mean, I won't because I won't have to move it that much, but I don't think. Oh, God. I don't know how that happened, but oh well, I'll figure it out.
You say take me on a treasure hunt. I long for something new.
Okay, so I decided not to move that shelf. The screws were stripped. It was gonna be too hard to unscrew them. And also I really like the spacing of them that they have with the 13.5 inches. And I have the extra scrap material, so it's not gonna be that much more difficult to raise the top to make sure I have that much space. So what I mean is like at the ceiling, I was going to bring the ceiling down to meet where the top of the cabinets is at, like build that down with 2x4s. So now instead of bringing it down all the way to the top of the cabinets, I'll bring it down a little bit less so there's enough space above that top shelf. So I'll have to build up above those two cabinets on either side, like I think it's like 2 inches. I'll have to build up, but I have the scrap material to do that. It'll just be some, kind of like how I did along the edges with just like stacked pieces of plywood. It'll be something similar like that, and then I'll just do like how I did a 1/4 inch plywood sheeting on the inside of the cabinets on either side. I'll do the same thing up top, and then where the seam is at between where the two pieces of plywood meet, I'll just wood fill and sand, and then it'll be painted and you won't see it. It's a little bit more work, but I would rather do that because I like the height of these shelves, and also trying to get those screws unscrewed from there was not gonna be it. So that's what I'm gonna do to remedy that issue. I went and I have some scrap plywood pieces that I have, 1 3/4 inch and then 3 layers of 1/2 inch. So this raises it up so that that top shelf has that 14.5 or the 13.5 inches rather than like the 11.5 that it currently has if I were to just build on top. So I have this, and then because this is what you'll see on the inside of the, like from the side of the cabinet, I had some scrap 1/4 inch plywood that I am just going to take and put on the facade here, so that way I just have one seam along the bottom up there that I'll just have to wood fill and sand and we'll be all good. So then I have my 3 pieces and then my 1/4 inch on the side, and this will just sit up there and make it all seamless. So then to attach it to the cabinet, I'm gonna go in the inside of this cabinet here and just nail upward, use the nail gun to nail upward and get it secure under the bottom, and then the weight of the 2x4 frame will sit on the top to help weigh it down. Currently, my 2x4 frame is looking a little interesting. I'm trying to figure that out. Right now, it just looks like this. It's only screwed into one side. So I think because the distance here is not deep enough for my drill to fit in, so I can't drill it into the wall, I think I'm gonna leave it like this, put it up on the wall like this, and then attach that board to the front of these. Okay, rather than talk your ear off more, I figured I would just show you what I was talking about. When I went to put this frame up here, you can see where if I would have had that other board on the front, I would not have been able to fit my drill in to screw it into the studs. So I put it up here, screwed into the studs, and then when I tried to put that other board on the front, the whole frame stuck out further than the front of the cabinets. So that 2x4 wasn't gonna work anyway, and I had to come up with a different way to add some spacers to bring those spokes all the way to the front of the cabinet to give us a level finish. However, before I did that, I had to go in and add these other 2x4 frames to the side because I was using an 8-foot 2x4 and the wall was 11 feet. I had to make these smaller U-shaped brackets to go up there as well. So I put those up with the spokes actually at the length that I needed them and screwed them together to my already existing frame. And then I could go in with spacers to make the whole structure along the top level with the front of my cabinets so I could add the rest of my face frames. Here you can see what I was talking about with nailing spacers into the front of these spokes. I had to bring the surface that I was nailing into forward to match where the front of my cabinet box was so that my 1x6 could sit flush with the rest of my face frames. Because the 2x4 along that back wall was so warped, each of my spokes stuck out at varying distances, so I had to make varying thicknesses of spacers to go on the end of each one of those spokes so that my finishing 1x6 would be totally flush when I was done. I also had to add 1/4-inch spacers to the bottom of that top structure so that when I put the panel that covers those spokes up, it would be flush with the side of the 1x6 coming down from the ceiling. Okay, I used my table saw to rip down some 1/4-inch plywood. I just used one of the project panels in the plywood section, like the 2x4 pieces instead of the whole 4x8. I didn't need more 1/4-inch plywood other than just for this, and this was just about the perfect amount. I'm gonna have just a little bit of extra. So I took the 2x4, ripped it down in half, and then there was a little bit of excess just for the depth of that top part. So I'm gonna take these and then set them up along that grid that we have up there and nail them into the braces. I'll just do it like this and then nail in that way. And then that top part up there should be finished until our crown molding goes. I mean, we'll paint and everything, but our crown molding will finish up the top. You'll see some gaps along each of the sides and all of that, but the crown molding will help cover that. To attach my 1/4-inch panel to the bottom of that top structure, I marked where the spokes were so I knew where to nail into, and then I sent my nails in at an angle using 2-inch nails so that it all held really well. Because I was using a project panel that I cut in half, and this space was longer than 4 feet, I had to use one whole half and then only part of another to cover up the gap. The seam between the two will get filled with wood filler when I go and fill all my nail holes. To prep for paint, I went in and wood filled all of the nail holes in the shiplap, the face frames. I filled in any knots in the wood, the seam along the mitered edge of the desktop, as well as any other seams that I just wanted to appear as one long piece of wood. I sanded down all of the wood filler and taped off all the way around the built-in to get ready to finally paint. Okay, it is time to paint. I have wood filled, I have sanded, I have taped. The wood filler that I used was the DAP plastic wood that starts out paint dries in the natural wood color. You can kind of see the color that it dries there. It was pretty easy to work with. I did go through a lot because I filled these seams here with it, all of the nail holes and the shiplap. All along up top there's some seams and stuff that I had to fill with it, so I did go through quite a bit, but it worked out great. It sanded down nicely. I used 50 grit sandpaper to sand that down, and then I went over with a 180 grit, and then I went over with a 220 sanding block to smooth out all of the wood, just to like get it ready for priming. So I'm gonna start by priming with the Hills 2 all-purpose interior exterior primer. I've used it before. It's not my favorite. I recommend the Zinsser Ben 123 shellac base, but this is what we have on hand. I'll be doing 2 coats of primer, sanding in between each, and briefly with that same 180. So 2 coats of primer, and then probably 2 coats of paint, also sanding with the 180 grit in between. The paint that I'll be using, I had Sherwin-Williams Pure White, color matched at Bare. So all of this, the shiplap, the cabinet boxes, the cabinet doors, the desktop, all of it's gonna be white, except for these shelves. There'll be the casing that goes over it to make the floating shelves, and I'm gonna have them stained in a natural color that's close to this natural pine tone. I like the way that it looks with the paint color on the wall. This here, this white down here, is the same white that we're using on the bookshelves. So I know that it's gonna look good on the shelves here, and then the door, I'm gonna be making a barn door for the entrance to the room, and it'll be the same color as these shelves. And then the Roman blinds that I'm gonna make for the 4 windows are also in like a straw yellowish color that'll match these, that'll complement the shelves and the door as well. And then on the floor will be a light natural jute rug that helps tie all of those colors together. I'm gonna start by edging out with the primer, and then I'll go in and fully prime everything, give it a good 2 coats, and then I'll start painting.
Something about me has changed. Something about me has changed. I'm sleeping just fine without you. Didn't know I could. Something about me feels strange. Something is just not the same. I haven't been thinking about you, even when I should. They told, I've forgiven. All the fights and whose fault I forgot. I've done all in my power to heal them, all of my scars. I'm getting good at letting go. I'm not there yet, but I know ain't no hope in holding on when I'm happier alone. I'm getting good and letting go. Ooh, 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 ooh. Something about you was off. Something about you was off, but I was too blind to see it. Too in love to know. Oh, somebody told me get lost. Somebody gave a heads up, but I just couldn't believe it. Little did I know.
After 2 coats of the Kills primer, I also did 2 coats of pure white that I had color matched at Bare in their eggshell enamel finish. Between each coat of primer and paint, I went through and sanded with 180 grit, followed by 220 grit sandpaper to make sure I had a really nice, smooth paint finish.
Ain't no hope in holding on when I'm happier alone. I'm getting good at letting go. Ooh, different. I long for something new. Have you heard the fairies when they sing and dance? Oh, I wish it was me every night. When I close my eyes, I see
At this point in the project, every new addition felt so momentous and felt like a big leap towards the end design. In the building process, it felt like things started to pick up pace at this point, which was so exciting. This built-in wall still needs crown molding to really finish out the top. I need to build the filing drawer boxes and install all of the doors and put those brackets on the floating shelves so that they're actually floating shelves. And we need to caulk all the seams to really make it finished. Next time, however, I am going to take a little bit of a pivot and turn to the rest of the room where I'm going to remove the current window sills to install new ones and case out the windows. I'm going to put in all new baseboards and board and batten trim all the way around the room. We're going to get that trim painted and caulked, and we're going to go ahead and install the floating shelf brackets on the built-ins so that we can caulk out all of the seams on the built-in wall as well. So next video is going to be a big one. It'll be a big transformation for the entire room, and I'm so excited for you to see it. So I hope you will consider coming back to watch that one. Thank you so much for watching this video, as well as the rest of the series if you've been following along. If not, please go check those out. I hope you will consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you'll know when the next video in the series comes out. Until then, I am wishing you all my best.